going? There we go. We're live.
Excellent. Give me just a
Oh,
second.
Teresa, like that is like so enthusiastic.
I got
Okay.
coffee.
We're
Love
gonna
it.
admit,
Keep it up, Teresa.
okay, we're admitting everybody and we're starting the recording. Here we go.
That's
Stephen Berkson, the floor is yours. We have 20 seconds before the meeting starts, but you can go for it.
We got some background noise. Do we know where that's coming from?
Can everybody mute themselves?
Do I mute myself?
I think it's coming from, is it coming
George,
from
I'm
Yeah.
gonna mute you, George. George, I'm muting
If
you.
George is on the phone, do you know that, is it *6 to toggle your mic and or one is *6 and *9. One of them toggles your hand up and the other toggles your mic.
*6 is the audio.
Okay.
You hear that, George? *6 to bring on your audio.
If
Okay,
you're on,
it's 7
if
o'clock.
you're dialed in. If he's using Wi-Fi, then he's just in control.
All right,
Okay, we ready?
we're ready. It's 7 p.m. Floor is yours.
And the March 3rd, 2025 board meeting of the Oregon Country Fair Board of Directors will come to order. And we will begin with announcements. Are there any announcements? Go ahead, Arna. You're muted, Arna.
I'm glad you didn't say what I said just then. You couldn't hear what I said just then. I have two announcements. The first is that Committee Best Practices is looking for new members. We meet on the third Tuesday of every month. If you're interested at all, you can contact Best Practices at OregonCountryFair.net. You can contact me. My information is on the .net site. For more information about it. My second announcement is very sad. Ed Moy, who had been a long time fair person and had built many, many things at the fair, like more than I could mention. I will say he was instrumental in creating the left bank. He had built the original Shady Grove stage, or at least one of the early Shady Grove stages, which has of course gone down. He had worked on main stage. He had just built numerous things, more than I can mention here. Anyway, Ed passed away 2 weeks ago from a really aggressive and fast brain tumor. He'll be really missed by those of us who knew him, and it's a big loss for the fair. So that's my other one.
Thank you, Arna. And AJ.
Yeah, I just want to sit with that for a second. So, yeah, it's always tough, the world the way it is when people that we love and care about pass away. My two announcements don't meet that, so I'm trying to take a deep breath here. The board had a training with Cliff Jones on February 11th, and we had a closed board work session on the 17th.
Thank you. And Sue? Sue, are you out there? Sue, do you have an announcement? You're muted if you're trying to speak. Well, we'll come back to. Oh, we can hear you now.
Oh, good. I suddenly realized I had not unmuted. I'm going to give a very abbreviated Bill Wooten Endowment Committee report. We met in early February and reviewed the application for grants, and this is what we did. Culture Jam received money for scholarships. Elmira Elementary received a grant for their Beats in Motion project, which includes drumming to get rhythms and beats, choral drumming, and learning styles from different cultures. Lane Arts Council got a grant for their reading and arts collaboration with Fern Ridge Public Library to deepen the appreciation for creative storytelling. Start making a reader today. Volunteers will be trained and supported in helping Elmira and Vanita Elementary students develop a love of reading with books from diverse identities. This helps build their literary success. Vanita Elementary got funds for the From Mud to Vessel project, developing skills in joining clay and develop a foundational understanding of structural integrity. Each student will create their own vessel and work on a collaboration for another clay project. Word Crafters got a grant for their collaborative project with Elmira High School to engage 9th and 12th graders in creative writing, focusing on spoken word performances. The Leslie Scott Imagine Grant Award goes to the Lane Arts Council. In total, it was $19,900 worth of grants from the Bill Wooten Foundation, the Bill Wooten Endowment. And for more information, there is a much bigger presentation in the Fair Family February issue. I just think it's really important to call attention to this in our meeting so that it is our record and more people will hear about it. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Sue. I would say that's an announcement on the awards from the committee. Thank you very much for that. And are there any other announcements? Last call for announcements. Seeing none, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes for the January 27th, 2025 and February 3rd, 2025 meetings. Is there any objection to accepting those minutes as presented? Last call is there any objection to accepting those minutes as presented? Seeing none, the minutes of the January 27th, 2025 and February 3rd, 2025 meetings are adopted by unanimous consent. We'll move on to the agenda. Is there any discussion on the agenda as presented? Arna. And real quick, you're muted, Arna. And really quick, anyone who's not on the board, an officer, staff, please turn your cameras off if you're not speaking. Only board members and officers and myself. Thanks. Go ahead, Arna.
Yes, I'd like to withdraw the last agenda item under old business, the affirm authority to communicate with external entities. I'd like to withdraw that.
Okay. And since it's not on the floor, is there any objection to withdrawing that motion from the agenda? Last call, is there any objection to withdrawing that motion? Seeing none, the motion is withdrawn.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. I was having trouble getting my hand up there. Can we give a brief explanation of why it's being withdrawn?
Yeah, it's being
I didn't
withdrawn
know-
because we want to. Oh, are you not done, AJ? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just not aware that was gonna happen, so I just was curious.
We've gotten some feedback about that motion, and we thought we would like to rewrite it based on the feedback that we've gotten. So we'll work with Kirsten on rewriting that motion to make it more workable.
And I will say, we're a little in uncharted territory for process, simply because new business isn't really putting the motion on the floor. So since it's not on the floor, I think it's reasonable to be able to withdraw it from the agenda. And I see Sandra's hand is down, so that was the same subject. Is there any other conversation about the agenda? Any other requests or objections? So is there any objection to adopting the agenda as amended? That is, one old piece of old business is withdrawn. Any objection to adopting the agenda as amended? Seeing none, the agenda is adopted as amended by unanimous consent, and we will move on to member comments. Do any members have any comments on items not on the old business agenda? Only items not on the old business agenda. And I see two board members. Is there any members that have member input? Okay, John and John. So when we do this, you're speaking as a member, not as a board member, with the same 3-minute limit. Would you like, is that okay? Can you, John?
Yep, fine with me.
John Alexander?
Absolutely.
Okay, go ahead.
For those of you that don't know what I do.
No, John Alexander, his hands up first.
Oh, mine is first in my chat, but okay.
Oh, not in mine.
John can go first.
Okay, go ahead, John.
For those of you that don't know what I do when I'm not on the board, I have sunshine 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I was really surprised when I turned it on this year. It was like people were breathlessly waiting for Taylor Swift concert tickets to go on sale, because the minute I turned it on, there were like 50 people logged in the first 5 minutes. So I just want to thank the members for being on the ball and working early to get their stuff done. I really appreciate it, because it takes all of us to do this. And I'm just really surprised how quickly everybody's jumping on stuff. So thanks very much for helping make this thing happen.
Thank you, John. And now on to John Alexander.
Thank you very much. As an OCF member and a newly recognized elder, I'd like to propose a recommendation for our membership to ask the board of directors to address. If you agree, please let your voices be heard on this subject. The need for our board to define officer job descriptions and prescribe officer authorities has been regularly raised over the past 3 years. This has been repeatedly brought forward at our retreats by the bylaws committee and during membership comments. Despite that, we have yet to take up this simple task that our bylaws explicitly state is our responsibility. Without written job descriptions and defined authorities, our officers have operated on assumed responsibilities and taken assumed authorities based on presumed precedent and who knows what else. As we have transitioned from an operations board to a policy board, I think this is a neglect of duty that puts us all at risk. Encouragingly, the board recently had a work session to discuss officer job descriptions as the meeting's sole agenda item. I was perplexed when this meeting was called to be closed so that our membership would not be privy to this basic conversation. It was called closed based on what I see as a presumed officer authority. Then, just days before the meeting, one of our officers informed us that they would call for the subject to be struck from the agenda. To me, this represented a clear conflict of interest. But instead, during the meeting, this subject that was the sole agenda item for the meeting was avoided through parliamentary procedures, or as I saw it, parliamentary shenanigans. Now this agenda item has been removed from our upcoming meetings. At this point, I think this represents a neglect of duty, and it feels absurd to me given what's going on in this country right now. So I ask that our membership help the board to realize that this is an urgent need that needs to be taken care of as soon as possible. And with that, I will close with a haiku. Our new world order. From it, we'd like to deflect. Instead, we reflect. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I will say, whatever parliamentary procedure stuff is being discussed, I'm unaware of it. So since I'm doing the parliamentary stuff from up here. Is there any other member input? Any other member input? Raise your hand in chat, please. Last call for member input. Okay, seeing none, we're going to move to the executive director's report.
Thank you, Stephen. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'll jump right in. For administration, the 2025 capital improvement requests have been reviewed by the Budget Committee and are to be voted on at tonight's meeting. The 2025 coordinator budget sheets have been sent to all coordinators. The committee annual reports are due by March 15th, 2025, and please email them to bestpractices@OregonCountryFair.org. The reports will be given to the board in the April board packet. We're working on consolidating all of our bank accounts into 2 accounts. These are 2 fully insured bank accounts. There is a motion on the agenda tonight to close these accounts that we're not keeping. The program we are participating in at the 2 banks sweeps our funds and deposits them into banks across the U.S. with FDIC insurance at $250,000 or less per deposit. This will ensure all of our funds are fully insured. The program pays a significantly higher interest rate than traditional savings accounts, and we will have no delay in accessing these funds. I've been working on the 2024 tax filings with Hillary, our treasurer. We'll be doing our financial statements, our 990 and our CT12. We have received our 8868 extension of time to file from the IRS, which means we have until November 15th, 2025 to file our 990. I'm still waiting on confirmation of the extension of time to file from the state of Oregon. Once received, that will give us until November 15th, 2025 to file our CT12. As John Steinhardt mentioned, the Sunshine database opened on February 23rd, and it will close on July 4th at midnight. So again, the database is open, but all entries will close on July 4th, 2025 at midnight. We will be doing job postings starting March 10th through March 31st. We will be hiring a bookkeeper, and that position will start in July of 2025. Our beloved Norma is retiring. We are also going to be hiring for a general laborer position that starts in May of 2025 and will run through August of 2025. This is a contract position, 40 hours per week. It will be posted on the .org site. So if you know anyone interested in these positions, I encourage you to encourage them to apply. Again, March 10th through March 31st, the positions will be posted. Spring Fling will be May 10th, 2025 at the Wow Hall. Tom Noddy will be our master of ceremonies and do a bubble show. So we're in for a treat. We'll have Call Down Thunder. We'll be playing from 8:30 till 10 p.m. As you may know, this is a fundraiser for Culture Jam, and tickets for the gift basket fundraiser will go on sale in April. Culture Jam 2025, which runs Thursday, July 31st through Thursday, August 7th. Applications will open to minors or what's the word I'm looking for, to applicants, to our youth, April 1st, 2025, and they will close on June 1st, 2025. So if you know a youth who would like to participate in Culture Jam, send them to the Culture Jam at Oregon Country Fair website. And again, they open April 1st and closes June 1st. The Teddy Bear Picnic will be Saturday, August 16th. The volunteer team opened the volunteer application on March 1st, 2025. If you know someone who wants to volunteer, send them to the .org site to sign up. If you need volunteers on your crew, contact the volunteer team. On the event management and marketing side, the Oregon Public Broadcasting Art Beat Show about OCF, which they filmed during the 2024 event, will air on June 27th, 2025. The guidelines are currently under review and should be in-house by April 1st. They will be online by mid-March. Craft applications are still open through March 21st. Teen crew applications, coordinator can currently request teens for their crews until March 15th. Teens will be able to apply to be on a crew starting March 15th through April 15th. Teen crew assignments will be issued on June 1st. Most entertainment applications are down, but the Xanadu Art, the Xanadu Stewardship, and Dance Pavilion are still up. So if you know anybody who would like to apply, those 3 stages are still open for applications. Afton Tickets, our event is live in their system, and all tickets go on sale on April 1st, 2025. They will change to full price tickets on June 16th, 2025. We will be offering 5,000 3-day wristbands for sale. Tickets may be purchased at the Eugene office starting Monday, April 1st. Tickets will be sold on Mondays and Tuesdays only of each week from noon to 4 p.m. And the last day to purchase tickets through the Eugene office will be Tuesday, June 25th. For site management, there was an EAB training held at the City of Veneta in partnership with the Oregon Department of Forestry and Oregon State University Extension. And it was conducted and arranged, or it wasn't conducted by Alexis, but it was arranged by Alexis, and it was on February 24th. There was to be a site walk portion, and that was canceled due to flooding, and it will be rescheduled in the fall. And about 15 people attended from the City of Veneta and OCF. So that was a really great opportunity to partner with the City of Eugene and the Oregon Department of Forestry and the OSU Extension. For 2025 contracts, we will have an LTD contract for 2025. Yay. I asked for a 5-year contract, but they shot it down. I tried. Whitebird Rock Medicine contract is signed. The Ritz Sauna contract has been submitted as new business on the March board meeting agenda for vote on a potential conflict of interest by the board in April. I'm still waiting on the Dodeca Art Barn and water delivery contract. Our West States Flaggers contract is signed, and we have signed the contract with Gooden Harrison, which is the company that will build the foundation for the house at the winery. So we expect the foundation to be built between April and May of this year, and then the house will be placed in September of this year. When it comes to service providers, I have confirmed that T-Mobile will provide a cow, that Verizon will provide a cow, and AT&T will be bringing nothing, not even a FirstNet tower like they did last year. So if you're on AT&T, I highly recommend you jump over to Verizon or T-Mobile sooner rather than later. That's a plug for them, not for AT&T. As for our 2025 permits, we submitted our camping permits today for Farside, Zen Acres, Alice's, Marshalls, and Dahindas. The Lane County Outdoor Assembly permit has already been submitted. We'll begin working on ODOT soon, as well as the Lane County right-of-way. We also turned in the Dance Pavilion building permit today and the Chela Mela building permit today. Thank you so much for your time, and looking forward to a wonderful fair in 2025. Thank you. To you, Stephen.
Thank you. And Hillary with the treasurer's report.
Yeah, I'd like to introduce the capital projects, and I can wait till we get to that old business item. That's the main thing I want to talk about tonight.
So you're saying, no, you don't have any presentation except the old business?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Next, we move on to committees and work groups report. Is there any objection to receiving the committee and work group reports that have been submitted? Is there any objection to accepting them as submitted? Last call. Is there any objection to accepting the committee and work group reports as submitted? Seeing none, the committee and work group reports are adopted by unanimous consent. And we move on to old business, the 2025 capital improvement projects. George, Sandra, and AJ, who would like to make the motion?
I'll do that.
Okay.
So I would move to approve the 2025 capital improvement projects. And then Hillary will.
Yep. Is there a second?
I think
Moved by
Second,
Okay, who said?
Teresa.
Teresa. Okay, moved by Sandra and seconded by Teresa. Hillary, would you like to introduce this motion?
I'd love to. Thank you. The board got a capital improvement packet in their board packet, and it's I think Kirsten was going to put the link in the chat, and it's also, if you go onto the .NET site, you can find it under board working documents. It has 4 different documents in it. I'm going to go over 2 of them at length. One of the documents is the list and description of the projects, and the board, may or may not talk about the detail of some or all of those. And one of them is just kind of a cash flow, if everything were cash, what it would look like in the QuickBooks, which is just good for an expectation for the board of what it will look like when it's in the QuickBooks. But the more meaningful ones for the purposes of what we're doing tonight, I think there's a text document that describes the classifications and kind of puts context to it. We have regular capital projects, which are the type of capital projects that we approve every year that are good for 1 year. And if people are not done with those projects by December 31st, they basically expire. And the next year they have to be carried forward if they didn't complete it. And it goes through the process all over again, although the carry forwards generally pass. But the expectation is those have a 1-year approval to get done. And then there's a category of projects that are funded out of set-asides, and that can be green ticket, or, in this year we have some insurance funds that were set aside for the mobile home replacement. So those are kind of separate because we already have the money on hand. So that's another category. And then the third category is what we started doing. I can't remember I think it was like 2018, rather than relying on so many designated funds with set-asides that we were setting aside but kind of weren't using very much. So we were creating this big tracking issue. What we did now is we're calling most of our funds kind of reserve and operating cash. But when the board actually passes a project, a long-term capital project is what we're calling them, and they are more complex, they're larger, they require some staff involvement because of the complexity, or because of needing permits, or needing supervision, or because we're using outside contractors. For whatever reason, the level of difficulty is a little bit higher, and those projects can stay on the they could stay on the plate for up to 5 years. So we could approve it now, and maybe it doesn't get approved next year, but it carries forward automatically, or maybe part of it's done and not all of it, and the balance will carry forward. So in the capital project proposal, there will be those 3 separate categories. This year's a very large year for the number of capital projects, or the amount that we're approving and recommending that the budget committee is recommending, for the capital projects, partly because we have that $150,000 for the mobile home. We're recommending some large green ticket projects. The budget committee had asked staff, where are we really needing some repairs and replacements and upgrades? So we have a fairly large long-term capital project list, and just regular capital projects too. We decided that this year, let's get it all out on the table, and we really asked the staff to think through carefully what is it that we need. And the budget committee really thought it would be a good idea to try to do a lot of these, and that's not typical for us to put as many on the board as we are trying to do. But we hope that you will consider it. The second document I want to draw your attention to, it's a landscape oriented cash flow. And this cash flow, it starts with how much cash we had in the bank at the beginning of 2024, and it divides it into the categories. So we had 2.8 million January 1st, and of that, 150 was for the insurance recovery that we got for the mobile home replacement at the winery. Almost 70,000 was the green ticket funds that had accumulated over a couple of years. And then we had some donor restricted funds that we don't have any projects in the capital project list for those, and that's almost 70,000. We have endowment earnings of about 60,000, and that's what the 20,000 endowment grants come out of. And then we have about almost 2.5 million operating and reserves. So that was our starting point for this year. We had a very strong year in 2024 for the cash. So we had a big leap from the year before. The next line in this shows if our operating budget is equal to the actual results, we would go up in cash by about $100,000. Of course, our budget never equals our operating results. You know, for many, many years, we underspent and we over-earned, and that was our pattern. That might not be the pattern this year, but the backup that we have in case it's not is that we do have really strong management and supervision of our spending. You know, say something happened and we did not sell tickets, you know, we had a huge expense somewhere that we didn't anticipate that was absolutely necessary. We have the ability with these projects to postpone a lot of them. So even though we are recommending with this project that we spend the money that we're expecting to generate this year, and we spend these set asides, and we're also saying, let's spend some of what we earned in 2024. We're not even saying let's spend all of what we earned in 2024, but most of it. If all of these projects are approved and all of the projects are completed, we would end the year about 100,000 over where we started 2024 at. So we're spending what we're spending down in this projection is the amount of money we expect to generate from operations this year, part of what we earned in 2024, and the set asides. So even though it's a really big year, it's, you know, we feel pretty good that we are capable of doing it. We know it's a big lift for the volunteers and the staff to accomplish all this. I'd be shocked if we got all of them done. I don't expect we're going to get all of them done, but you know, I hope that the board will support it. I feel like it's a leap of faith of supporting the staff and really trying to upgrade and maintain our facilities and taking on some very responsible big projects. So that's my introduction. And, you know, if people want to talk about individual projects, you know, please point them out, and we can either get a staff person or, you know, somebody from the budget committee who's knowledgeable about them to address that. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you. So is there any member input on the capital improvements? Any member input? Raise your hand, please. Any member input? Raise your hand in chat. Shelley.
Hey guys, please forgive me for not just being new here, but being late. And I wanted it to be entered into tonight's minutes for announcements that a couple of weeks ago we lost Cameron Clark, affectionately known as Cam Shaft. And Cameron was a longtime member of Site Crew, and he was a motorcycle rider and a book reader and a lover of vintage Volvos. And he was also a veteran of the United States Navy. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that. He was also very involved in the local community with Food for Lane County and the WOW Hall. And there should be a celebration of life coming up sometime in April at the WOW Hall. So information on that to come. So sorry for the interruption here, but thank you for letting me see that.
Thank you, Shelley. Let's pause for a moment. Okay, we'll move on. Aaron.
Just a real quick question. Is the capital improvement list that the staff decided on posted somewhere? We were just talking about it and going, wow, it'd be cool to see that list.
It's I didn't look in chat. Kirsten was going to put the link in chat, but it is under board working documents on the .NET site.
Okay, I just looked on the .NET site and didn't find it. I went the wrong place, Hillary. Thank you.
It's
I
also in
appreciate it.
chat if you have access to chat.
Yeah.
There's 4 links for 4 documents. One of them is, I think, the one you're looking for. Any other member input? Last call for member input? All right, seeing none, we'll go to board discussion. And did you want to raise your hand for this, Arna? Is that what your hand was earlier? Or was that for something else?
No, my hand was really just to thank all the committees who put their minutes in for us to look at so that we can keep up with their activities. And that's long gone, but I just snuck it in there right then.
Okay,
So
thank you. Any board discussion on capital improvements? Raise your hand in chat. Last call. Seeing no discussion, we will move to a vote on capital improvements. Sandra?
I'm a yes.
George? George? We having technical difficulty?
I just asked him to unmute.
Okay, that's what. Paxton?
Yes.
AJ?
Yes.
John Davis?
Yes.
John Steinhardt?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
John Govsky?
Yes.
John Alexander?
Yes.
Teresa Vaughn?
Yes.
Arna?
yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
And the capital improvements motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Steve, can I thank the budget committee too? I meant to thank them. This is the end of their working season and they put in a tremendous amount of effort as well as the staff. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. And we'll move on to the next item of business, which is to place on the ballot the annual election, a question clarifying voting rights of the membership. Teresa Vaughn, John Govsky, AJ Jackson. Who would like to make the motion? Teresa?
I would like to do a presentation which ends with the motion. Do I need to make the motion first before I can do that?
Make the motion and then do the presentation, yeah.
Can I say so moved or should I read it?
You can, especially if you're going to cover the contents of it, especially given how long it
I
is.
move, okay.
Move to adopt it as submitted, and then you can make a presentation.
I move to adopt it as submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Teresa Vaughn and seconded by John Govsky. And would you like to introduce the motion, Teresa?
Can't wait. Okay, can everybody see my presentation? Okay, so this motion that comes from the Joint Committee, Bylaws and Election Committee, is to clarify voting rights in the bylaws motion, and we are moving to take it to the members. I'll be more specific about that in a minute. All right, the first thing I would like to do is thank the Joint Committees of the Bylaws and Elections for thoughtfully addressing these issues and for listening to the concerns, the important concerns raised by members about what constitutes a voting right. I also want to make it clear as we move into this conversation that both of these committees, that our goals are, and everyone on the committee, and my experience working with these people, is absolutely to ensure the voting rights of our members. There is nobody on any side of this conversation that wants anything other than ensuring voting rights for our members. So here we go. That's how I felt trying to figure this all out today, to have it, see if it could be clear. So I need to back up. A couple of you weren't involved. I'm going to go as quickly as I can. Article 11, Section 2 of the bylaws was adopted in 2015. Its original intent was that members would have final authority on what they voted on, and that the board then couldn't change the topics over which the members had a right to vote. And here is Article 1, Section 2, and highlighted no amendment to Article 5, Section 6A of these bylaws pertaining to the voting rights of the membership may be enacted unless such amendment is ratified by the affirmative vote of a majority of the membership. And it says, and so it refers to Article 5, Section 6A. So Article 5, Section 6A, what's that? So that talks about rights of the membership. And in 6A, the rights of membership include voting. And I'm going to go to the highlighted section first. Members shall vote to elect the board, remove a director, amend the articles of incorporation as provided in the Oregon Nonprofit Corporation Act, and on all other matters for which a membership vote is required by the act and by these bylaws. In addition, members shall have the right to vote on advisory resolutions concerning any other matter to come before the membership. But of course, you'll see that above that, it says all members who have been members for at least 30 days prior to the date of a membership meeting, and that's going to come in pretty soon. So let's really focus on that here. I'm sorry, I got my little teacher mode in here. All members who have been members for at least 30 days prior to the date of a membership meeting or action by written ballot shall be entitled to cast a vote. So now I'm going to fast forward 9 years to last January. The board asked a joint committee of the Bylaws and Elections Committee to consider a series of changes to the bylaws concerning the way we run elections. This includes setting a minimum age requirement. In the two committees, the joint
Is she breaking up for everyone or just me?
No, I can't hear either.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
frozen
me
for me.
She's frozen.
I can't hear out here either.
If you can hear us, Teresa, you're locking up.
Give her a sec to see if it comes back. Can someone reach out to her via phone to let her know that she's frozen? Unfortunately, she just dropped off.
Oh,
So let's give her a minute to come back in. Stephen, what would you like to do? Well,
Just give her a minute to come back in.
okay.
Does anybody want to call her? Make sure she's coming back in, that she has any internet at all.
I
Otherwise
can
she
do
come
that.
back. Otherwise, she may have to come back by dial in.
Dubsky, do you have the presentation?
I think Teresa's the only one who has that presentation.
Okay, because I don't see her coming back anytime quick.
Well, I see Sandra talking to her.
Okay.
So she's trying to get back in, and if she can't get back in, she'll phone in. And if she can't get back in, then she might just try to verbally give her report or something like that. So
Should we move to the next agenda item and come back till when she gets back in?
It looks like I'm getting in.
oh, she
Oh,
says,
there she is.
Here she is. Here she is. Let's see if she's coming back in. There we go.
okay.
Yeah, it was either that or I was going to suggest I could sing a song.
That was awkward. Pretty sure, and my internet, I'm sad to say, is due to Elon Musk. So let's just blame him for one more thing, shall we? Okay, I'm gonna go back. Can I still share?
Yeah. Oh, well, we gotta, yeah.
Okay. So I zipped ahead. I don't know where I was when I was talking to you. I think this is where I was in March. Are people good?
You were on January 8th.
Oh, wow. No, I made it. I fast forwarded. Okay, there we go. Great. Okay, so the joint committee is formed to address some of these issues. We have a work session on the bylaws. We put the proposed amendments on the .net site, and we recommended moving the 30-day registration from Article 5, Section 6A to Article 5, Section 2. Why? Because that section is called eligibility and admission, and we felt that it was the appropriate place for it. We felt that that was an administrative issue. This time frame might even be something that we'll be looking at with hybrid voting. I'm not really sure, but that's kind of a beside the point. In June, the board approves all the other proposed changes except the minimum age changes, which is postponed to the August board meeting. And now I'm doing my very best to get the timeline right, but sometime between June and August, and the issue gets raised about the definition of voting rights. This 30-day period, once it gets moved to the section we recommend moving it, takes it away from the place that is protected. The motion is remanded back to the joint committee for further review. And we wanted it back because of this issue that was raised, and we wanted to have time to really think about that. Specifically, is the 30-day requirement to be eligible to vote a voting right or an administrative issue? So throughout the fall, the Joint Committee sought legal counsel on whether or not this 30-day notice is a voting right. It was certainly not intended that way by the initial crafters or the board of 2015, but what their intent was, while I think it's important, it's still, I'm just explaining that it's one of the reasons why we didn't think of that, because that wasn't what we intended. I wasn't there, but the committee. The OCF attorney agrees that voting rights are what you have a right to vote on. A member seeks the opinion of a different attorney who feels that the 30-day notice does in fact constitute a voting right. The Joint Committee holds an open work session in December to discuss this issue on the definition of a voting right. There are no board members and 3 non-committee members show up. No consensus is reached about how to move forward in this at this work session. So the Joint Committee goes back to the OCF attorney, who still feels that this is not a voting right, but does recommend that that we do the following to address the concerns of this voting right. 1, we clarify within the bylaws what is meant by voting rights, so no further confusion as to what constitutes voting rights. But because it was brought up by members who care deeply about voting rights, we wanted to honor those concerns posed by them so that the 30-day notice is in fact a voting right. So we would ask the members, how do they feel about this clarification? So it would go to the membership. So the Joint Committee of the Bylaws and Election Committees and the OCF attorney recommend the following, and me, Teresa Vaughn, officially already made the motion. Shall Article 11, Section 2 of the OCF bylaws be amended to clarify the voting rights of the membership by inserting the following subsection? B, as used in subsection A of this section, the term voting rights of the membership means those subjects for which Article 5, Section 6A provides that members shall vote or shall have the right to vote. I hope I typed that right. And I'm going to stop my share.
Thank you. Is there any member input on this motion? Call for member input. Lisa Parker.
Hello, everybody. So at the January 8th, 2024 board meeting, the board directed the Joint Elections and Bylaws Committee to consider amendments to establish a minimum age or voting age. During the discussions, the committee recognized that if a minimum age were adopted, the current 30-day registration requirement in Article 5, Section 6A could unintentionally disenfranchise members whose birthdays fall within that window. To prevent this, the committee recommended moving the 30-day registration requirement to Article 5, Section 2, which defines membership eligibility and admission requirements. The committee also considered whether this change would trigger Article 11, Section 2, which requires a membership vote on amendments to Article 5, Section 6A that affect voting rights. The committee determined that the 30-day registration requirement is an administrative measure designed to give the membership secretary sufficient time to process applications. But to be sure, the committee asked the fair's attorney to review the proposal. And they agreed that the proposed amendment does not require a membership vote. The attorney also suggested adding a definition of voting rights to Article 11, Section 2 to clarify the difference between voting rights and administrative rules. That brings us to the motion before you tonight. The committee is not asking the board to define voting rights. We are asking the board to let the membership decide by putting this question on the fall ballot. Approving this motion tonight gives members 7 months to educate themselves before voting in October. So what problem does this solve? Well, it removes the ambiguity in Article 11, Section 2, thereby preventing future misunderstandings and confusion. And why act now? Can't we leave it alone? Well, if a minimum age is adopted or online voting removes the need for a 30-day registration period, then this issue will come up again. And acting now ensures that we don't unintentionally block eligible members from voting. And finally, I want to be clear, this motion does not interpret the bylaws. It ensures that the members have a say in how they're interpreted. If members disagree with adding a definition of voting rights to the bylaws, they can vote no. This is not about restricting voting rights, but empowering members to define them. Let's trust the membership to make this decision, and I urge you to support this motion tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Heather.
I can just see people glazing over with the confusion of this. I would urge you to vote no on this as it is. And one of my really big concerns is that this is being couched as empowering the members, yet there's never been a question referred to the members by the board, right? Members have done petitions and referred questions to each other, but there's no process for this. And the fact that there are board members and people who have an opinion about how this is going to, how they think it should be, will be the ones formulating the question. And we all know from voting that the way the question is formulated, especially in a very, let's say, low information voter environment, like a whole bunch of our voters are, just because, you know, why follow the OCF board all the time, would have a huge impact on it. And there's just not enough clarity, and I'm sure other arguments will be made. Thanks.
Thank you, Heather. Hall.
Good evening. I'd like to urge you not to pass this motion. It claims to be an attempt to clarify, but as far as I can tell, it makes the situation now and going forward more confusing. Article 11, Section 2 is simple and quite clear that the voting rights section of the bylaws, Article 5, Section 6A, is not to be changed without a vote of the membership. This motion adds a section limiting which clauses of Article 5, Section 6A are protected and removes protection for the clause concerning when a new member has the right to vote. This is the wrong way to proceed because it reduces the rights of the membership and makes it much harder to understand what is and isn't protected. I understand that the need for this modification arose from the possibility that the board will set a minimum age for voting. And the goal is to modify the 30-day clause so that someone whose birthday is during the 30-day period would still be able to vote in that election. Stephen Berkson's suggestion to change the first on his website, to change the first sentence of Article 5, Section 6A to read, all members whose membership application was submitted at least 30 days prior to the date of a membership vote shall be entitled to cast one vote on any issue brought before the membership, is a straightforward solution that solves the problem and can be easily understood by the membership. If you're not prepared to amend the motion in this way, please vote it down and return to it in the future. No change is necessary at this time, as the minimum voting age has not yet been set. Thanks.
Thank you, Hall. John Pincus. John?
Hear me?
Yep, you're here now.
Yeah. Oh, great. Yeah, thank you, Hall. You just clarified a whole lot of things for me. Bottom line for me is anything pertaining to the members' ability to vote should be voted on only by the members, period. And the right to be notified adequately, to be able to be sure to be present for the discussion of an amendment of the bylaws, in my view, is certainly a right. The right to be notified that proposed amendment is happening. I can't think of anything more basic, since if you're not notified and don't know about it, it pretty much doesn't, your right doesn't, anything else doesn't exist. So, however, Hall pointed out that the motion on the floor has certain problems in itself. So I would go along with Hall and encouraging you to vote no on this at this time and consider Stephen Berkson's proposed amendment in the future. I do not see this as a pressing issue, and so we need to get it right. The membership has been distanced from the governance process different ways recently. Our voting rights will not be diminished in any way.
Thank you, John. And I am speaking now as Stephen Berkson member, not as the facilitator of the meeting. And I will begin. So I have spoken on this and I've written about it on my website, scberkson.com. Part of what we've just done here is a concern I have with process, because a great deal of stuff, I'm sure all intentions are good, but a great deal of stuff in the introduction of this motion are things that I believe I have disputed and successfully demonstrated not to be true, that get presented over and over again as fact. The original intent of the motion, if you go back to the June 2015 board meeting, it defies the assertion that this was never intended to be protected. It in fact explicitly says by the person who made the motion that it was intended to be protection. Also, what was said by the attorney, what's clear to me is that the attorney initially didn't even know about the protection in the first recommendation, and then came back and effectively agreed. And I would say she has not recommended this as a solution, but rather said, this is something you can do when asked specifically whether or not this is something you can do. And what I'm saying is, you should just ask the members to change the language the way you want, whether that means deleting this sentence or modifying this sentence. Just ask the members to do it. So now I'm going to try and get back to my prepared comments. Nothing actually needs to be done. This began as an assessment of bylaw changes to add a minimum voting age to the bylaws. Nothing needs to be changed in the voting rights section of the bylaws to accomplish that goal. This action is completely unnecessary. The recommendation that I've made accomplishes that goal, however, that the only goal regarding birthdays is still can be accomplished, but nothing needs to be changed. This motion has been presented as letting the membership decide. That is a fallacy. The board has an affirmative responsibility to put transparent and well thought out questions before the membership with a clear purpose. The question for the members contained in this motion completely fails to meet that standard. The members do not get to pick what they will vote on, the board does. 3, I realize this issue has been wonky and confusing for many. In no small part, this is inherent in the problems with this motion. The level of wording parsing and rationalizing of alternative definitions has strained credulity and served to add confusion. This is as simple as I can make it. The bylaws have a section entitled Rights of Membership. And in, shit, I'm going to run out of time. And in that part of the bylaws, the section contains voting rights. The bottom line is this then. I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to finish. If you want the members to change the voting rights section, you should ask them to change it and not add a definition that makes the voting rights section subjective and subject to being changed without membership approval. There's no need to do that. Thank you very much. Spirit.
Hi, I'll keep this short and sweet. I think Heather and to a large degree you as well, Stephen, have expressed my sentiment. The confusion here of why we're revisiting this right now needs and deserves more look from the membership and also more outreach. And we know that oftentimes agenda items are agenda driven, and what membership is concerned about. It could be an article in the Fair Family News, much bigger than our board minutes. There's ways we can do outreach in order to get the input that we are seeking from the concerned members. So I'm a rule of thumb, when in doubt, vote no. We can always revisit this later. Thank you.
Thank you. Lawrence Taylor.
Thank you. I wrote Article 11, Section 2. I know exactly what the intention of it is. It was an extremely narrowly focused on one concern, which is the idea that a board might eliminate voting rights altogether by switching to an appointed board. It was never on anybody's radar that the 30-day registration requirement would be something that anyone would ever have to vote on. It trivializes the meaning of what was intended to be an absolute backstop on the highest level of magnitude. So the idea that because if you think about it in terms of statutory interpretation, the words pertaining to the voting rights of the membership, if this interpretation that anything in Article 5, Section 6A requires that membership vote, you could strike those words out and it would mean the same thing. But they do mean something because it is that limited. The distinction between voting rights and the registration requirement is made very clear if you look at Stephen Berkson's statement from last month. This is his writing. Quote, the first sentence of the voting rights section says, in essence, that new members obtain voting rights 30 days after becoming a member. So you can clearly distinguish between the 30 days and the voting rights, which is what they obtain. Now, the idea that this would make the voting section more subjective is exactly the opposite. It makes it clearer because what it does is it uses the language in Article 5, Section 6A, which is the members shall vote or shall have the right to vote. That enumerates what the voting rights are. And it's set up in a flexible way so that if voting rights at some point are expanded to include other things besides those, that Article 11, Section 2 would still apply to it. Now, Stephen says that this is misleading because the members don't get to decide what to vote on. Well, there's Article 11, Section 2, as it reads, would still, any amendment would start with the board. Any amendment would start with the board, and the amendments for which Section 2 applies would then be referred to the members. There's no provision, nor there's ever been a provision where an amendment would start with the membership. The amendment power is something that until I wrote Article 11, Section 2, rested entirely with the board. And the only intention here was to say on the ultimate question of whether the members get to vote, that members get to vote on whether there are changes to that. And so And the other idea, which has been raised at a previous meeting, that somehow a board would manipulate the registration requirement to deliberately disenfranchise people, is ludicrous. And I wrote you a fairly long evaluation of that, showing how they couldn't do that if they wanted to.
Okay, so that's your time, LT.
That's good.
Does Heather have more time, Kirsten?
Yes, Heather has 1 minute, 50 seconds.
Okay, Heather.
So the thing is, the bylaws have a section entitled Rights of Membership, as we know. And in that part of the bylaws is a section that contains voting rights. Whether the rights are inherent or created by us, even if created by us accidentally in 2015, making the 30 days a right, they're all voting rights in our bylaws. The bylaws also say that the voting rights section cannot be changed except by a vote of the membership. If you want to change something in the voting rights section of the bylaws, like deleting or changing the 30-day clause that has been this subject of so much conversation, simply ask the members to make that change. You've been offered 2 language options to do that, which are simple, transparent, and have a clear purpose. Much easier to understand. Still pretty wonky, but easier to understand. Instead, this motion wants you to approve adding a definition of voting rights to supposedly clarify them. The proposed question in this motion could easily be misinterpreted as an effort to strengthen voting rights, but its actual purpose is to make the voting rights section more subjective so that you can then make changes to the voting rights section without member approval. I'm sure the intention wasn't and isn't to deceive anyone, but the motion can certainly be seen as hoodwinking the membership and hiding its actual purpose, mostly due just to the confusion. Thanks.
Thank you. Does Lisa Parker have time?
Yes, Lisa Parker has 15 seconds.
Lisa Parker, you have 15 seconds.
Okay, so if the board chooses to put this question to the membership tonight, the membership will have 7 months to do their homework and decide if they support this or not.
Thank you. Is there any other member input? Aaron Kenton.
Hi. So I'm going to weigh in with Spirit on this one. I don't think we need to change it. It's been working really well for decades. Have we come to a place where we've run into trouble because of the way it is? If we want to change the voting age, and if that is deemed to be something that the membership needs to vote on, then we could have a vote on the voting age that the membership votes upon. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Is there any other member input? Raise your hand in chat. Last call for member input. Okay, seeing none, we'll go to the board discussion. Is there any board discussion? Raise your hand in chat. Any board discussion? John Steinhardt.
Well, I had planned on saying less than I'm going to say. I'm kind of exhausted by this. I have never seen such a full court press by a small group of people to try to get the board to go in a particular direction. We had a Fair Family News article. I've gotten 3 identical emails from the Election Bylaws Committee people. We had a presentation at the last meeting. We've got presentations at this meeting. If this was so straightforward, this wouldn't have to be pushed so hard. And all by itself, that discourages me from doing this. The claim that this is a mistake, that a mistake was made when protected rights were added to our bylaws in 2015 by adding something that shouldn't have been a protected right, I don't agree with that. My reading of the meeting minutes is this was done deliberately. It was not a mistake. There was a discussion about it. There was asked, is this going to be a protected right? And the answer was yes. So I don't really understand why, after being in place for 10 years, this is all of a sudden causing a problem. I do understand that the time from obtaining membership to an election is not traditionally a voting right, but 10 years ago, the board made it one. And again, it hasn't caused any trouble, so why remove it at this point? So in general, the bottom line to me is this motion is asking us to ask the membership to give up a right that's not causing any problem. We had several members just speak, and except for members that worked on drafting this motion, everybody's against it. And I actually have trouble believing that the members would vote to give up a right if the question was, put to them that way. So I really can't support this. I can't see putting any time and energy into this. Had the Joint Election Bylaws Committee actually done what we asked them to do, which was come up with language for voting age, we could discuss that, but they didn't. As was explained by one of their members at the last meeting, they started there and then went somewhere else and then went somewhere else and then ended up with this, which is not what we asked for. And so, yeah, I can't support this at all. Thanks.
Thank you. AJ.
Well, interesting enough, John Steinhardt said it all. Thank you.
Thank you, AJ. John Alexander.
Question and then a comment. Then I think it's a yes/no question. Can we do that, Stephen?
Well, depend if it's factual, if it can be factually interpreted from the motion. What's your question?
Did this motion come to us written as a recommendation that was approved by our bylaws committee?
I think it was the Joint Election and Bylaws Committee that sent it to the board.
So it came from the committee. And I think when our committees work and do things for us, I think we need to be careful to take them on the face. And if we've got some critiques about what they're doing and what they're working on, that maybe we should go to their meetings and have that conversation there and not in public meetings. I do like the idea of taking something to, a question, especially one that's being so debated to the membership. Maybe it'll increase voter turnout. I don't know. I just think the idea of taking something to the membership is an interesting thing. I understand that this was the subject of a bylaws elections committee work session, and I was not there. And I think that that was a place to continue to have this, or to begin to have this discussion. But it was poorly attended. So is my understanding by board members. I'm not sure. The other thing I just want to say is this is an example of something that this is the first time that we as a board of directors have been able to collectively have this discussion, and we're being asked to decide on it tonight as well. And I think that when we're trying to make decisions about policies and other things like that, I think it's important that we take time to have dialogue and work on things, maybe send back to the committee for clarification. I think that I just have a hard time. This is a really good conversation, really good points being made on both sides. And the fact that this is the first time we're collectively discussing this as a board with the membership and we're being asked to vote on it tonight, I just think it's not the best way to do business, and it's not the best way to learn about things, deliberate about them, and make a decision about them. I think we can be more measured in our decision making. And so, I'm leaning to go with the advice of our committee and what happened here, or even better so, table this and have more discussion about it. I know at our last board meeting, we had time to discuss new business, and it was recommended that we discuss new business.
So John, I need to stay germane to this motion, please. We're talking a lot about process. And you can object to the process, but we need to stay germane to this motion, please.
So I would suggest that if this is so hard to cover, that we table it and get some clarification, or ask for some clarification and a rewrite, and maybe what it would look like on the ballot specifically, because there were questions about how it would be framed biasly on the ballot. So that would be my recommendation.
Thank you, John. Sandra. You're muted. Arna, you want to get on the list?
I am on the list.
Before me on mine.
No, somehow I missed that. Go ahead, Arna.
I do agree with John Steinhardt. I think that we've had this in our bylaws for 10 years now. It hasn't caused us any harm. I'm not so sure why we have to change it at this point. I also, we're looking at hybrid voting now. I don't want to start changing bylaws around voting and how long you have to be a member etc., until we develop our hybrid voting system. I don't know how this will affect it. So I'm not interested in putting something out to the membership about this until we figure out our hybrid voting, because that may change our question. And we may have a different timeline. You know, maybe we could shorten up how long people have to be members. We may just have a whole change on all of this. And we may have a very different question to put to the members about that. So I do not want to vote. I would be a no if I was voting on this tonight. Because I don't think it's worth doing at this point. And I do want to thank the Bylaws and Elections Committee for their hard work on this. But sometimes committees come forward with suggestions that the board does not want to approve, and that's acceptable. We don't have to approve everything a committee brings to us. And I've been on a committee where the board totally rejected the proposal we brought to them. And so we just went back to the drawing board and we're reworking our proposal. That's life, and the board, we are the board and we're supposed to look at what committees do and accept or reject it, and committees, accept that. At least I hope they do. So that's it. I'm rambling. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sandra.
Yeah, I had a couple of comments here. When John Steinhardt said that traditionally waiting periods aren't a voting right, but actually during the civil rights movement, waiting period was a voting right, and it was an important one, and it can be manipulated. So I think it sort of rightly belongs as a protected right, and I'm loath to change that, especially at this point when we're going to hopefully be making some big changes in allowing for online voting and also pertaining to voting age. So I'll be a no vote on this. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to go to Kevin Levy because he has not yet spoken. I see you, John.
Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, I just wanted to say I definitely agree. We've got hybrid voting coming. So if folks feel this needs to be done, I think it should probably, wait until after that kind of goes through and see what that happens. So definitely could change things. And I wanted to thank Teresa for her presentation. They are the best. And so I'd like to see more of those, Teresa. They're really are really joyful. So it really helps. But I am generally concerned about the confusion of this. If, we can barely explain it to each other, what does it look like for members out there trying to explain it to each other, and then everyone trying to explain it, and it could be really, it's got to be in good terms on that. And so I think we should take some time on it. Thanks, everybody.
Stephen, are you there?
Oh, sorry. I've got a separate button for my mic and sometimes it doesn't click even when I push it. John Alexander, go ahead.
Yeah, I would move that we table this motion, assuming that there's going to be some discussion around the hybrid and maybe even a work session. It could come back around then. And I would ask that the committee, if it comes back around,
so if you're going to move
to
if you're going to move to table, are you moving to table it to the next meeting specifically or indefinitely?
Indefinitely.
Okay, well then that's, so that's non-debatable. So you can't speak and make that motion. So, because nobody else gets to talk about it.
Can I speak then make that motion?
Nope. You could speak. You could suggest that we table it and come back and get on the stack again. But what you can't do is give a monologue and then make a motion that nobody else gets to talk about and we have to proceed to a vote. Because that's unfair.
Well, everybody knows how I like my monologues, but I'll just move that it get tabled indefinitely.
Okay, tabled indefinitely. Is there a second to tabling it indefinitely? Is there a second to tabling it indefinitely? Last call. Motion dies for a lack of a second. And we go on to John Steinhardt.
Yeah. I do want to point out that the section in dispute here begins with a sentence, members who have been members for 30 days. So this is not an eligibility issue. It is actually a membership right. So I think the person that tried to claim this was an administrative membership issue was not correct here. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there any other board discussion? I have no one on the stack. Last call for board discussion. Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. Sandra,
No,
George. George still with us?
Doesn't look like it.
Talked too long, he had to fly? Okay, can somebody confirm that George is no longer with us and I will move on?
he's gone.
He's gone.
Okay. Paxton,
No.
AJ,
No.
John Davis,
No.
John Steinhardt,
No.
John Govsky,
Abstain.
John Alexander,
Yes.
Teresa Vaughn,
Yes.
Arna,
No.
Kevin.
No.
So the motion fails with George absent because his plane took off, John Govsky abstaining, and we have no votes from Sandra, Paxton, AJ, John Davis, John Steinhardt, Arna, and Kevin. And that concludes that matter of business. Moving on to the next. Close the bank accounts. Northwest Community Credit Union account, Oregon Community Credit Union account, Providence Bank, Beneficial Bank, Umpqua Bank. Sandra, Arna, and AJ, who would like to make the motion?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second,
Moved by AJ and seconded by Sandra. Do you have anyone you want? Do you want to introduce the motion or have someone to introduce it?
I'm
I'm
but
guessing
then
the
our
executive.
executive director has anything to
Kirsten,
say?
can you address the purpose of this motion?
Yeah, I addressed it in my management report. And it's basically so that, one, we can generate greater interest, greater than a savings account, a traditional savings account. It ensures all of our cash. We're moving to 2 specific banks, and both banks will be fully insured. They're called sweep accounts, and I need a motion to take to the banks to close these accounts. All monies will be placed in these accounts, and they'll be swept nightly, and we'll have instant access to the money, even though it's being swept every night. So there's no delay in accessing our money. Like I said, it generates a higher interest rate than a traditional savings account, and in some cases CDs as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any member input on closing these bank accounts? Does any member feel the need to speak to this? Raise your hand in chat. Last call for member input. Is there any board discussion on closing these accounts? Oh, John Steinhardt.
Yeah, I don't know if Kirsten explained this before, but we've had a history at the fair of putting pieces of our money in different accounts so we can stay under the deposit insurance limit so that we don't lose money in a bank failure. And I guess we're not the only organization that does this. And somebody figured out that a great business to have would be to take people's money and move it around and put it in accounts under the insurance limit for them. So it basically, we're doing just what we used to do, but we're not having to do the work ourselves. And we have plenty of other work to do. So we're just farming out, doing exactly what we did in a much simpler way that actually gives us a higher rate of return. So I support this motion. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there any other board discussion? Raise your hand in chat. Last call for board discussion. Okay, seeing none, we will proceed to a vote on closing bank accounts. Sandra,
yes.
George is absent. Paxton,
Yes.
AJ,
Yes.
John Davis,
Excuse me. Yes, please.
John Steinhardt,
Yes.
John Govsky,
Yes.
John Alexander,
Yes.
Teresa Vaughn,
Yes.
Arna,
Yes.
and Kevin.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. And that concludes old business for the March meeting. New business for the next meeting is the OCF OSHA Safety Manual, sponsored by George Braddock, John Steinhardt, and AJ Jackson. Approve the potential conflict of interest for the 2025 Ritz contract, Arna Shaw, Sandra Bauer, and AJ Jackson. Approve the updated, these should be to adopt the updated employee manual, Sandra Bauer, John Davis, Teresa Vaughn, and AJ Jackson. Adopt a hybrid voting system, John Govsky, John Davis, AJ Jackson, Sandra Bauer, Paxton Hogue, Teresa Vaughn. Is there anyone not on this list? Kevin Levy, George Braddock, John Steinhardt, Arna Shaw, and John Alexander. Do we want to have any discussion of new business, AJ, before moving on to the wrap up? I don't know where we are in time.
We're still working on, so not tonight.
Not tonight. Next board meeting is Monday, April 7th, 2025 at 7 p.m. via Zoom. And we will have meeting evaluation. Is there anyone who'd like to speak to meeting evaluation? Please raise your hand in chat. Members or board. Would anyone like to speak to meeting evaluation? John Steinhardt.
Yeah, just want to say good meeting, got through everything, and we're like got a half an hour left. So thanks, guys.
Thank you. Teresa.
Yeah, I do need to talk about the fact that as we discussed the motion, there was a continued calling as if there was nefarious intent on the part of the Bylaws and Election Committee and me to deceive, and I found that very offensive.
John Alexander.
Yeah, I thought it was a great meeting too. I also thought taking the time to have a meeting of the board in work session was a really great thing for us to take some time and talk. So I really appreciate that. Stephen, you always do a good job. Appreciate that. I think that when we have time left in the meeting, there's no reason why we wouldn't talk about new business. And I'm not quite sure where the authorities lie, but I think to close a meeting early should take a vote of the board. And if there's time left, we should talk about new business, so we don't keep getting into this same situation. And besides that, I really appreciate everybody, and I can't wait for the fair. So thanks a lot.
Thank you. And I want to say for my part to Teresa specifically, I apologize for however that may have made you feel. Part of my concern with process here has been the ability to take a screen grab, to do a presentation, and if a committee, this is process thing I've discussed before, if it becomes a presentation that's advocacy, and it has extra privilege from typical board members just getting to speak, and there's no opportunity for the opposing view to have an equal opportunity to present the opposing view with the equal rights, like being able to put a presentation up or something, then it biases the conversation. And as far as deception, there was certainly, I have been in these, and I was distressed because I was in those committee meetings. I read the legal interpretation, and I think many things that were presented weren't true. I don't think that you tried to present anything falsely or to deceive anyone. But there was also the point of, if the motion was to create a definition over here, to change something over there, it could be perceived as deceiving, or it could deceive people unintentionally. It was not to say that there was a nefarious intention on you or the part of the committee, at least from my part. And so all trying to have a dispassionate conversation and not attribute motives to anyone. So if any motives that may have been felt or anything that may have seemed harsh, I apologize for my part in that. Thank you. Spirit.
Yeah, I wanted to just touch on that a little bit as well. What I feel like I heard tonight is that sometimes when there's confusion with a motion, especially when it has to do with membership rights, in my opinion, it can be perceived that way. The board has a much broader picture, the details, the committee has the details, we know that membership isn't always 100% involved, and sometimes you got to push a little bit, especially with membership input or something that has to do with the members. So I felt like tonight was just talking about perception to the members rather than accusatory, at least in my opinion. I dealt with that as a board member as well, and often tried to hear the members when they were saying that something did not feel transparent. Also, I hope that the board can also move away from this ideology that the board has to always do whatever a committee recommends. The committee brings a recommendation, but the board has an obligation to look at that in depth, gain as much member input, especially when it has to do with our bylaws. And I really hope that we can move away from this whole idea that we have to accept whatever work the committee did. It's really okay to question the committee. It's okay to send it back. It's okay to say no. It's okay to amend. And Stephen, thank you for a very well-run meeting once again. That's all.
Thank you, Spirit. Heather.
Skip me.
I see Aaron before me.
Oh, did I skip you? I'm sorry, Aaron. I guess I thought
Sorry,
I was
real quick. John Alexander was talking about time on the clock. At one time when I was on the board, and I just don't remember if it was a formal motion or not, we all okayed it. Jack was cool with it, which was good. When there was time at the end of the meeting, we set it up so that the membership could actually talk with the board. There could be exchange of communication. The way our system is set up, members speak, board speak, vote. There's never any communication between everyone. So we had this period of time at the end. We only had moments at the end, very rarely in those days, but it did happen a few times where the membership could talk with the board, ask a question, get an answer, start a communication, start a conversation, not necessarily about new business or old business. I like the idea of the new business though, John. That's a good idea. Anyway, it would be great to put that back in, I think, if you felt that you could. Thank you.
Thank you. Heather.
I was just thinking about how it is really hard to separate lots of times, but I just want to stress that, you know, if I talk about something being able to be perceived as, you know, hoodwinking, it's not that I'm accusing anyone of hoodwinking. You know, it's like I feel like lots of times, no matter in our lives, no matter what we say, people will hear part of it. And as much as you try to bend over backwards and say, I'm not accusing you of anything, it can still feel accusatory, but it's really not.
Thank you. John Pincus.
In relation to what Heather just said, for 501c3 membership organizations, it's really important to be conscious of the perception of things. So the perception of wrongdoing can be just as harmful as actual wrongdoing when it comes to questioning the integrity of the 501c3. Thanks.
Is there any other meeting evaluation? Any other meeting evaluation? Last call. Seeing none, we'll go on to President's Piece.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for a good meeting. Tonight, as somebody who celebrates Black History Month in February, I'm also a person that believes in celebrating Black history all the time. And so I just wanted to use this time for an education piece to remind us how timely these discussions are as far as voting rights, and to remind folks that, you know, this country is only 249 years old, and that slavery lasted for 400 years in this country. And so with that said, it's a reminder you have two people of color on this board. That couldn't have happened, I would say, even 50 years ago, 60 years ago. You wouldn't have seen that. So progress happens. It happens slowly. But I think we need to hold sacred that the rights that we have are important. And people have bled, people have died, and people have put lots of sweat and tears into getting those rights on every level, whether it's our government, whether it's organizations, or whatever it is. To just be aware of that. And I leave you with a quote: "If you have no critics, you'll likely have no success." And that's by Malcolm X. You guys have a great evening. I appreciate the your discussions tonight. I appreciate the board. I appreciate the membership that shows up every month. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you to our staff. Lastly, it is a hard job that we do here, trying to make sure that we represent the membership as best as we can. I think that the board is getting better at not fighting with each other, but representing you and your voices. And I hope that we continue to get even better. So thank you and good night.
Send us 2 pictures. Thank you very much. And with that, the March board meeting is adjourned.
Well, and this is Grumpy. Kirsten, you stopped watching the sunset. Sorry.
Actually, we just saw your hand pointing at it with the camera.
Okay, sorry. I tried to show it to you.
Hey,
Great,
Sandra.
good meeting. You can even hear it in Hawaii. Bye-bye.
Sandra, thank you for your point
Thanks,
that you
guys.
used tonight. I really appreciate you bringing that civil rights example up. I think we have a history of that we can rely on when it comes to these sort of things. And that stuck with me and it touched my heart. So I really appreciate you bringing that up tonight.
Yeah, I didn't know about that. Thanks.
Great meeting. We
Thanks,
appreciate all
everybody.
your time. And
Awesome
we'll
meeting,
see you
everybody.
here again next month. Bye,
Totally.
everybody.
Thanks.